Welcome back to the Anthony Bradley Show. I am particularly excited about this interview with another stellar, outstanding fraternity president. Why? Because this is my own chapter. And so I have to. There was no way I was going to have a project on fraternities and not have some representation from the Pi Alpha chapter of A Phi A. And joining us today is the 2021 president of my chapter, Jamison Taylor at Clemson University. And I am really thrilled and excited to have this conversation today with him. So, Jamison, thank you for being on the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to go with this interview.
So, just tell us a little bit about where you're from. You're not from South Carolina. I remember that. Where'd you grow up?
So I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I came to Clemson after my father took me on a college tour. I just fell in love with the school, felt like I could make an impact. And I guess we'll talk about that later as we go through this interview. And currently I'm studying operations management. And after I graduate this May, I'll be working with Amazon in Washington, D.C.
And did you look at any other schools? Did you look at other schools in the Maryland, Virginia area?
Yeah, I looked at Hampton, I looked at Virginia Tech, UVA, UNC, so all on the East Coast, but I just really love like Clemson.
And what was it in particular about Clemson when you went to visit that you thought I want to go here. I want to go to the other ones.
It was really just a family atmosphere. Just like, okay, like despite like some of the things you might hear about in the South and some of the stigmas and like, I guess conflict there is. I feel like I belong at Clemson. I feel like I can make a change and impact here on this campus. So I was excited to come here.
And when you were in high school, were you thinking about joining a fraternity? When you were in high school, were you thinking, when I go to college, I am definitely joining a fraternity? Was that on your mind?
Honestly, no. I did love my father. He's a member of our fraternity as well. So I would always see the stuff around the house. And I ask him what it is. And he said, when you get old enough, I tell you. And then it wasn't until I actually got on campus and I saw the alphas. I'm like, oh, so that's my dad's fraternity. And then, that's, how I got interested.
So they didn't try to pressure you when you were in high school, like, boy, let me tell you, when you go to Clemson, you better pledge A Phi A, you better not pledge.
No, honestly, I really didn't know. I don't even think I recall knowing anything about like fraternities, just said that my father was a member of one. Like all his close friends were in the same fraternity. So that's the limitation I knew, but I didn't know, okay, like what Greek life was in college.
And you've been in how many years?
This is my fifth year.
Fifth year in. Mm-hmm. And how would you compare your friendships, the relationships that you have with the brothers in the fraternity versus the kind of relationships you had in high school? How would you compare and contrast what it's been like to be in this particular brotherhood versus the friendships you had in high school?
I think when you make friends in high school, most of the times like you guys are in the same circle. So like I went to the Matthew Catholic High School, played on the football team. Like all my friends were pretty much on the football team. Those are the guys I spent the time with. And I had my friends from like, back when I was younger, I spent more time with them than I spent my friends in high school. But when I joined the fraternity, it's a more diverse subgroup of like men, diverse brotherhood. So like we all have these commonalities. We all like members of Alpha Phi Alpha. We all like have a brotherly bond, but then also we get a chance to like get exposed to different things. So like one of my brothers, he might be more into fishing, whereas like me, I'm from a city. I'm more like, city boy, I like to go out. So I think it's just a more diverse group of like men you surround yourself with in a fraternity.
So in the fraternity, you have opportunity to meet some men that you probably wouldn't naturally have affinities with because, like you said, you're into some things and they're into others, and it's often the case that you don't naturally kind of find each other, especially you coming from D.C. down to South Carolina, because that's a completely different culture from the brothers who live in that part of the country versus the Mid-Atlantic region. I mean, that was one of the things I loved about my Clemson experience was just being around different kinds of people, because I grew up in Atlanta. and we have our own kind of ways in Atlanta. But then when I went up to the upstate of South Carolina, I was around people that had different backgrounds and experiences, and it really enriched those relationships. And so that those are the kind of things I think that make fraternities in general, but also Greek life at Clemson really special. Now, there's a lot of resistance, even in the Black community. There's a lot of resistance to thinking about the good that fraternities can do, and whether or not it's good to even be in one. Some people think it's too elitist, it's too separatist. There's this us versus them mentality in terms of those who are Greek versus those who were not. How would you explain to people why fraternities are good, and particularly why would you explain why Black fraternities are good at schools like Clemson?
I believe that fraternities are good because it gives the members a chance to develop both as an individual as well as like the campus or community to develop. I think one of the beautiful things that fraternities have, or the opportunity fraternities have, is the sacred campus. When you think of like some of the most notable leaders, particularly within the Black community, a lot of them are members of Greek organizations. You think of Dr. King, you think of Thurgood Marshall, those are both brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha. So when you come here to a campus, you might be one of the brothers in the fraternity, might be one of the next civil rights leaders or want to be the next big activist. And then they had the small beginnings from being on the campus and trying to save the campus and make it a better place for all people. I think like not only does being a part of fraternity like shape the service aspect, the community aspect of like college life, but also just the social aspect. Like a lot of social events put on campus, not just parties, but just in general educational events, a lot of times are be like fraternities. And when like the president of the campus wants to meet with like a group of minorities to get some feedback, he's meeting with members of the Divine Nine, these Black Greek-led organizations.
And so when you are a member of a Black Greek life organization, you're automatically in the leadership corps on campus.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, you looked at like you were basically one of the big prominent leaders on campus, particularly as it pertains to the Black community. And like when these other organizations, whether it be CUSG, other fraternities, or just campus administration, faculty, and campus leadership, they're coming to you to get your feedback a lot of times. Like there'll be meetings I'll have with President Clemens, so I'll be invited to go to dinner, or I meet with different student affairs leaders. I'd be like one of the first to meet about these leaders about certain issues, or if there's a project, I'd be asked to be a part of it and get feedback.
And for those of my listeners who didn't have the privilege of going to Clemson, I'll just say it like that, weren't lucky enough, weren't blessed enough to be at Clemson. Can you explain the process from going from that informational meeting to crossing over? How does one become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha? How does that work?
Well, particularly at Clemson, one of the first things you have to do is go to the NPHC orientation. So that way you get a chance to engage with all the different organizations and learn about them, because you want to make sure you find the right fit for you as part of the fraternity if that's something you're interested in. Like you want to make sure you're surrounded by a group of men that push you and challenge you, or a group of women that push you and challenge you. Following that, then once you make your decision after doing research, then you attend an interest meeting or informational or awareness seminars, which they call it today, where you learn about the application process, the requirements, the criteria, as well as just basic information about the fraternity nationally as a whole, as well as like the chapter. Following that, you're going to the portal. You do the application. So you need a recommender, as well as a sponsor from the chapter. They have to write you letters. You also have to take a test too. You have to get a 90%, or else you can't, apply again for a whole another year. Then you submit all your information and documentation, which is within this application. And then once accepted, then you move into a 3-week IMD pre-process membership intake process later on throughout that semester in which you decide to apply. And you study the material with like the brothers in the chapter, and then you get tested at the end of the week. So and then you'll be initiated once you've passed all the tests with a 90% or above.
And you mentioned the phrase MPH. What was that?
NPHC, the National Panel and the Council. So that's the governing council of all the Divine Nine organizations you find on like campuses. So they're currently Clemson, they're 8 out of the 9 right now. We have Alphas, of course, aka Deltas, Omega Psi Phi, Kappa Alpha Psi, Sigmas, SG Rhos, and Zetas.
And for my listeners, how would you define what the Divine Nine is? Because some of them will have no idea what that means. What's the Divine Nine?
It's a group of the intercollegiate Black Greek letter organizations like around the world. So we have 9 organizations around the world, and like when you think of like some prominent Black, when you think of like as I mentioned before, like prominent Black leaders and Black culture, like a lot of them were members of organizations. Currently, the Vice President of the United States is a member of AKA, which is the first intercollegiate sorority, Black intercollegiate sorority.
So it's a group of the original Black fraternities and sororities that were founded in the early 20th century as a way to create Greek opportunities for our own people.
Mm-hmm.
In part because the rest of the fraternity Greek life system wouldn't let us in. I mean, this was during segregation, and it was virtually impossible at that time for us to join these other organizations because of racial discrimination and segregation issues. And our Greek organizations have particular orientations toward helping our own communities. And so it's not just, as you know, it's not just a college experience. It's a lifetime of service and uplift to the entirety of the black community and beyond, right? I mean, we do lots of things in lots of communities as well. Now, when you went to that first, I think you said awareness meeting or that informational meeting. So there was a time where at Clemson, you would visit different fraternities in the Divine Nine. Is that how did that work? Was there like you were in a room, and then you got exposed to the alphas and the kappas and the Qs? I mean, how did that work?
So the way NPHC orientation works here at Clemson is that it's just they have a presentation held by the NPHC president. So he'll lead the presentation, then he'll go through each of the organizations. So each, like either the president or a number of representatives of the chapter will come, give a brief synopsis of like the chapter here at Clemson and the criteria, how to join, and just some of the aims and mission statement of the organization. And then there'll be a bigger room where it'd be almost like a social like setting where like the different organizations will have tabling and have a chance to talk to the brothers of the organization and learn about them, and more like social setting, more open session.
And when you did that part, what was it about Alpha Phi Alpha that made you decide I want to pursue a Greek opportunity with this particular group of men versus the others? What was it that stood out to you about APHIA?
Well, honestly, I really I think I did maybe talk to the organizations, but I knew right off the bat, like Alpha was one of the things I wanted to do. So it almost wasn't like no question, not because of like the pressure from my father, but just like when I was younger, like a lot of the lessons he would instill in me were based off of things he learned from Alpha. Like he always used to recite the last 2 lines of Invictus, and I used to hate it. Whenever he would use it, it's like I was making an excuse. And then like coming to Clemson and me like actually meeting the brothers and getting known, and then also becoming a member of the fraternity, I was able to like truly learn like the meaning of like these last like lines of that poem.
And what would you say makes Alpha Phi Alpha distinct from other fraternities, and not just the Divine Nine, but all the other fraternities on the campus? Is there anything that stands out to you?
I think particularly it's just our ambition. From the sense that, not only were we the first Black Greek letter organization in the collegiate to be founded, but when you just think about, okay, like leadership, like Alpha is like one of the first to be leaders in like most endeavors, if not like all endeavors. Like there's always an Alpha being the first to do this, being the first to do that. I think even now today, like the brothers we have in our chapter are always like one of the first, or they're either leaders in whatever organization. Like you just continue to see that trend. I think that's makes us distinct from other organizations. We're the first to lead.
And one of the main slogans and mottos in the fraternity is first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all. Anyone who's interested can go to the national website, and that's going to jump out at you first. This vision statement, this motto. First of all, servants of all, we transcend all. What is it? What is it about that statement that stands out to you?
I guess one of the things that I guess means the most from that motto is the servants of all standpoint. Because I was just thinking about during my time as presidency, just like what Alpha meant to me was like being a servant, being providing service, community service to others on campus, or just like the whole greater community. So I think at the end of the day, that's why our organizations are founded upon, and that's why we're here. Like from Alpha, originally started as a social study club, created community where brothers or men of color can like come study together. And now just thinking about the work we do now, I think just thinking about my fraternity, one of the things I always want to be able to do and say is okay, like I served, like I gave back to the community.
And what did it look like for you all to live that out at Clemson? Is there anything that comes to mind that says that servants of all? How did you all live that out?
I say probably one of the most, we do it through a variety of different ways. We do mentoring for little children at the Little John Community Center. We've done highway pickups. We've done food kitchens, but I think probably the most notable things we did was this past year. We worked with Alpha Tau Omega, which is another IFC fraternity on campus, to help repair a slave cemetery, and then also support the woman who owns this, whose family owns the slave cemetery, as well as the church. Have like fish fries every third Saturday to help raise money for like to pay off the church. So there's a story. If you look up Clemson fraternities come together, and you'll probably hear about the story we had together. It made national headlines. It made the news. And I think why that was so important to me is because I think like it knocked out like a lot of things when we think about service. Well, for one, it brought unity to our campus because a lot of times you don't see like our two different councils work together, IFC and PHC, so able to come together on that. Then also when you think about just the work we did in the slave cemetery, you think about how slaves didn't have proper burial rights, and it was just like sticks and stones laying there, being able to clean that up, and then have like the brothers of ATO kind of get to see that, as well as get national attention on that, and then also support this woman's fundraiser for the church and bring more attention to that, so she could pay off the debt on the church.
And so that's an example of adding real value to Clemson, because what are you doing? You're saying, hey, these are not values that we just recite. We actually put these things into practice, and by doing so, we're going to make the entire community at Clemson a better place. For example, we're going to partner with a traditional, predominantly white fraternity and partner on this project together. That's leadership, right? That's showing, that is showing and building a model of unity and racial reconciliation and partnership that you don't see everywhere, especially across the ACC, the SEC, in and among the Greek system in the South. I mean, it's one of the things you typically do not see. And the fact that you all partner with ATO to do that is really, really extraordinary. And I think it's a worthy article for people to look up, because that's the kind of things that being in Alpha Phi Alpha means. That you take that kind of dynamic and purposeful leadership to that end, because it's consistent with what it means to be in the fraternity in the first place. One of the things that I'm saying about this entire heroic masculinity project is that to be in a fraternity is to be a man who uses his power and his presence and his strength for the benefit of others. And that's service, and that's exactly what Alpha Phi Alpha is, and that's exactly what you just described, you all are doing. You're using your gifts and your power and your presence for the benefit of others, which I think is incredibly outstanding. But I'm biased because this is my chapter, right? So, of course, I'm going to say some good things about it. On the national website, there are some objectives, some values that the fraternity has. And I want to ask you about how you all apply those things, particularly at Clemson. They read as follows: number one, to stimulate the ambition of its members; two, to prepare them for the greatest usefulness in the causes of humanity, freedom, and dignity of the individual; three, to encourage the highest and noblest form of manhood; four, to aid downtrodden humanity in its efforts to achieve higher social, economic, and intellectual status. So I just want to walk through each of these and just sort of get a sense of how you all live those out or seek to pursue those at Clemson. So the first is to stimulate the ambition of its members. How do you all stimulate each other's ambition on the campus at Clemson?
I know for me personally, like as the president of the chapter at the time, one of the things I want to do is empower the brothers in my chapter to be leaders on campus wherever they see fit. And in particular, I think of two examples, one of which would be actually both my neophytes, but one of my younger neophytes. He crossed in spring 2021, and he was a member of this organization called CODA, which is the Council of Diversity Affairs. They work hand in hand with student affairs. At the time, it was during election time, so he was considering about being president. There was no one else running for it, or not too many. However, he had some. He was I guess hesitant to do so. He didn't think he had maybe the capabilities at the time, or was afraid of like the workload. But I encouraged him to apply for the position, which he ended up getting. He's currently the president right now. Simply for the matter of fact that I think it would be a growing experience for him, just having that leadership opportunity as well, and work with different diverse organizations on campus. So I think like being a leader and having that experience can help you transcend throughout the rest of your life. It's like regardless of like maybe how you perform, it's still a learning experience. And then one of the other times I stimulated the ambitions of our members was the current vice president at the time, Gavin Vasquez. We had the president of student government elect. He wanted to visit our chapter, and he was looking to establish a Greek affairs vice president on his council. So I recommended and encouraged that our vice president be a part of it. That way we have a member of our chapter be in those meeting rooms with student government as they make big decisions.
So to be in the chapter means that you're going to be encouraged and pushed and exposed to opportunities, not just to serve the chapter, but to serve the entire university.
Yes.
And as you are doing that, what's happening? You're forming the kind of skills, leadership development, opportunities for personal reflection that set you up to do that kind of stuff when you get out.
Yes.
Right.
And then also just thinking from that, as you mentioned before, when you're talking about shaping your college experience, that's how these fraternities, shape that college experience. You're having leaders all across campus. Currently, one of our brothers, Malik Balagun, he's the elect for the president for student government next year. So like we're able to make an impact and make changes on our campus that we want to see to bring the campus together and help like all people.
And that's that's one of the advantages of being in Greek life, period, is that you start to practice your skills. You start to see what you're good at, and you can put that stuff into practice so that when you graduate, leadership isn't new. When you graduate, because you've been president, you will have experience with leading men. You'll have experience working on a budget. You're going to have experience organizing events. All these are just sort of developmental experiences that you get to have because you're in a fraternity. And that's sort of opportunity for growth and development is something I believe fundamentally that makes being in a fraternity something every man should have in his college portfolio. The second one here is to prepare them for the greatest usefulness in the causes of humanity, freedom, and dignity of the individual. What does that look like for the men in Alpha Phi Alpha at Clemson to put into practice?
For me, that meant just educating our members and giving them valuable experiences in life. I think oftentimes when I thought about my leadership, particularly like as it came to its end, is that I wanted to prepare them to lead. Oftentimes that means, okay, allowing them to lead themselves and experience things firsthand. I think, one of the greatest teachers in life is failure. So instead of, okay, like being all on top of them and okay, like almost, being a helicopter person all on top of them. It was okay, like allowing them, okay, take control of this event. And if you miss something or you don't see something and like, okay, it backfires, it's just a learning opportunity for you. At the end of the day, like you mentioned before, that this is all just a learning experience to prepare you for later in life. You get to learn, okay, like how does an organization run? Okay, how do you plan an event, lead a project, coordinate a project, work with a budget? So just give them that valuable experience so that way they can take that off into the real world and carry that with them.
The third one is to encourage the highest and noblest form of manhood. How does that look for you guys to encourage the highest and noblest form of being a man?
I think when you think about a fraternity standpoint, encouraging the highest and noblest form of manhood means that making sure that the brothers in our chapter carry high character, have high character, high standards. So I think this is like the way how you carry yourself as well as like how you want to do business, particularly like when you think about the stigmas around engaging with women. Like we're not going to have brothers who are inappropriately touching women or disrespecting women in any way, as well as just not just women, but also just other people on campus, respecting our members, respecting our differences, and just being open-minded and always being willing to learn and how we can improve. And that just comes with holding each other accountable. Like we have bylaws. And also like when you have that brotherly relationship, as our chapter does, we're able to come to each other one-on-one and say, okay, like, hey bro, like that really wasn't cool. Or like, yeah, nah, you shouldn't really do that. And like brothers are not gonna necessarily take it personal. Now, obviously, like we are like young adults or adults and we're all humans, so we have challenges. But at the end of the day, I can confidently say that regardless it was just like my line brothers or just the chapter as a whole, we're always able to work our differences for the betterment of ourselves.
There's a proverb in the Bible that reads, is iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. And the point is that with some heat and some friction and some tension, men are making each other better. And what you just said in terms of having some bylaws, having values, having standards, having accountability, I mean, those are the things that make the brothers better. And those are the things that build the reputation of the fraternity that continues to live out the values that people will expect from what it means to be an A-Phi-A. And you hold each other to that standard on purpose because there is more to being in the fraternity than the chapter. There's a legacy, there's a history that goes all the way back to 1906. And you want to make sure that every brother is consistent with what it means to be in a Phi A. And if he is not, he will be checked. He will be corrected. But it's not to beat him down. It's to build him up. It's to build him up and make him the best man that he can be. A man who is consistent with the traditions and the values of what it means to be in the fraternity. And the fact that you'll have, as you mentioned, that brotherly relationship and connection where you can confront somebody without them taking it personally is really the best context for humility to do its work. And for you men to be able to have those relationships put you guys ahead of everybody else, because most men don't have people they with whom they have the kinds of relationships where they can be corrected and given better opportunities to make things wrong that were right and to learn from failure and things like that. So it's just really extraordinary. what you just mentioned. The last one here is to aid downtrodden humanity in its efforts to achieve higher social, economic, and intellectual status. What does that look like for the men in the chapter at Clemson?
For us, that just comes down to like service and like uplifting our campus. And we do that through a variety of ways, as I mentioned before, just our leadership in different organizations. We have brothers everywhere, all across campus, leading in some shape or form or fashion, oftentimes president, but in other ways too, whether it just being an exec board or just a general member. Because when we think about particularly like as an undergraduate chapter, there's still problems that exist on our campus, social justice wise, or whatever you want to say. So it's like when we're members of our chapter here at Clemson, we want to be able to combat these. And now oftentimes do that being in these rooms with these people who are making the decisions, organizing protests, however you see fit. And also just bringing the campus together, uniting the campus and working with different organizations on campus.
And one of the distinctions of being in Black Greek life is that this isn't just an opportunity to practice these things in college. What it means to be in the Divine Nine, what it means to be in APHA in particular, is that these four objectives are things that you practice when you graduate with other brothers when you get out, because there is the undergrad chapter and then there is the grad chapter. There's these alumni chapters, and you can graduate from Clemson and move to Greenville. You can move to DC. You can move to Atlanta, and you will join a group of brothers who are actively engaged in continuing to do these things in their city. So this is not just a college thing. That's what makes being in Black Greek life different. This is the beginning of a lifetime of service. So you graduate, you move, you join up with the brothers, and you continue to do these things as an adult with your career, with your family. You continue to do these things. And I think it's just really an extraordinary opportunity for men to begin a journey of putting these things into practice. And they can do that in really great ways, in really concrete ways, even in college, in ways that you mentioned, make the campus better. Being in APHA, being in Greek life adds value. You're adding value to Clemson, which is an opportunity to do something that most students don't get to do. And being in these fraternities allows you to have access to making change. And that is something that's a really extraordinary and an important legacy. That was my experience when I was at Clemson as well. Now, fraternities are the sorts of things that a lot of people don't like, and they think that they create terrible men. I love the fact that you mentioned that you all are really focused on having a good reputations, not just with women, but with everybody. And that you challenge each other to do that. Why do you think fraternities continue to get such a bad reputation, a bad rap for just being terrible guys, just rambunctious, this sort of unruly, conceited, arrogant? Why do you think that continues to exist?
There's negative stigmas around fraternities, particularly like when you think of like undergraduate, like college life. Like, and when you think about like Black fraternities, a lot of people don't realize, or from outside the community don't realize, like, as you mentioned before, like these are lifetime commitments. Like once you become an alpha, you're going to be an alpha until you go into a mega chapter. So when you think about from that standpoint, I think that that's often overlooked. And then also like the work that we do as fraternities is often overlooked, not just by maybe like the world as a whole, but also maybe like the college community in some standpoint. Like you might get recognized from student affairs, but you don't see the university as a whole publicizing as much. They might publicize the football team winning a game against like, you know, a sucky team. So I think that's like some of the reason why we had those stigmas. But then also like some of those are true. Like there are some bad chapters, some bad apples, as you might say. that have like issues or have challenges, and they need to be held accountable as such. There's no excuse for why they should be doing some of the things that they do, because that isn't a representation of the fraternity. That goes completely against what the fraternity stands for. And that can fall in line for a number of things, where the brothers in the chapter don't hold each other accountable, nationals isn't holding them accountable, or just like the brothers you decide to bring into your chapter. I think also that's one thing to keep in mind too. Like you want to, one of our founders, one Jules said, is quality, not quantity. We're bringing quality brothers versus quantity. So like it's better to have one good brother versus 7 bad brothers. So I think that can also play a role as why we have these stigmas and these issues in Greek life.
So to be in Alpha Phi Alpha means that you pre-screened that you all are actually looking for men who are quality.
Yes.
And that's deliberate. That's not an accident. It's not an accident, right? And if you're not a quality man, you're not getting in.
Yeah.
You might sneak in. That's possible. You might sneak in. But the goal is to invite men who are on the pathway to being excellent and want an opportunity to do that with a group of men, and to do that in a way that creates some excellence, that is ambitious, with like-minded brothers who want to serve their communities, which I think is so very, very important. Now, when people hear A Phi A at Clemson, when they hear Alpha Phi Alpha at Clemson as president, what image, what words, what ideas did you want people to immediately associate with being in the fraternity? What does anything stand out? It's like when they hear, "Yep, he's an Alpha Phi Alpha," this means he's like what?
When I'm thinking about my time as president, how I wanted our legacy to be during that time, how I wanted our reputation to be, was that like we ran the campus, like we were running it from the standpoint of like service. Like we have the most service hours. We have 600 community service hours done. We have leaders across campus fighting for, advocating for like the members of campus, students on campus, like literally like running the campus, being in the rooms there with like, the president of the Clemson University, the vice presidents. We want brothers to be there, helping make those decisions or advocating for like the students or representing the students. And then that, I guess like we're degrees above the rest. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Mondays, we'll have brothers dress up and wear suits to make ourselves more distinguishable and just give the perception that we are about our business and like we're about the real work. Like oftentimes you might see fraternities or other organizations that say they do this and that or third, but you don't really see them working. I want our chapter to be the brothers that, okay, like you see us working, you know what we're about.
So part of that distinction is we are actually not just hanging out on campus having fun, although we do have fun. But to be a man in Alpha Phi Alpha means that on the campus of Clemson University, you are actually making the university a better place. You are in organizations. You are leading on behalf of others. That's what it means. It's not just social. It's purposeful. There is, of course, there's fun and there's a social aspect, but there's more going on. And the goal is also to be visibly representative of a community as leaders on the campus, and to be in Alpha Phi Alpha means that you are one of those black men on campus who are investing in improving Clemson, because Clemson ain't a perfect place, as we both know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work that still needs to be done in making Clemson the best university in America. And Alpha Phi Alpha puts men in places and in positions to do just that. And it's really, really, really a great opportunity to, as we said earlier, to practice some of those leadership skills and make a real important and significant long-term, maybe even permanent difference in the life of the campus. Now, let's say a freshman walks up to you, sees you wearing a suit, knows that you are in Alpha Phi Alpha, and he asks you the question, why should I pledge? Why should I be a member of A-Phi-A? What's the pitch? What's the what would you tell him standing in front of some classroom building why
I
he
would
should
tell
consider
that
being in? Yeah.
I would tell that young man that if he wants to enhance his college experience, if he wants to grow around like-minded men who have the ambition to be leaders in this world, who want to give back to the community, who actually want to do the work and provide service and advocacy for our communities, then he should be a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, particularly here at Clemson. We're a diverse group of men. You see us everywhere. You oftentimes see us leading. And, I know at least for me, for my college experience, I wouldn't be the person I am today without the experience I had through Alpha Phi Alpha, through the leadership experiences, the bonds I've built through the brotherhood, even just outside of fraternity. I met like a lot of my friends just from other brothers that were in fraternity, even before I was in the fraternity. And just seeing like the work we've done for this campus and the surrounding communities and the work we will continue to do. If you have any ambition aligned with that, you should be a member of our fraternity.
And what would you say is the profile of the kind of men that you're looking for? I mean, what kind of man needs to be open to joining? I mean, what are some of the characteristics, the sort of profile, that description of what he needs to already be like in order to consider pledging?
I would say that our fraternity is diverse. It's good to have a diverse group of brothers in your chaplain organization because it helps with the innovation, creative projects and impacting the community, and also being representative of different kinds of people. But just the general commonalities that we see is that brothers are involved. Like before you become Alpha, you're involved. You're a member of different organizations. Having some leadership experience helps. It adds to the chapter. Oftentimes, when you think about the spirit of fraternity, you want to think that, okay, like, it's not what the fraternity can do for you, but what can you do for us as well? So just having brothers who are, have leadership experience helps, or just like skills. So maybe, okay, you may not have had an executive position, but you know how to make a flyer. You're sociable. You know how to unite people. You're involved with different organizations, regardless of the level. Academics is important as well, because like a lot of times we see that as just like your college drive as well. So you want to make sure, okay, like you're graduating, like you're doing well in school. I mean, it's okay to have to switch. The reason I'm staying a year younger is because I had to switch, but I was able to kind of like push myself in my academic career, be a member of this organization. But yeah, just being involved, being cultured, and having a caring about your academics as well.
So there's a real sense of ambition
Mm-hmm.
that you all are looking for, right? I mean, you want men who are already somewhat ambitious, and they're looking for opportunities to expand that ambition
Mm-hmm.
and make the contribution of their life something that matters
Mm-hmm.
and is effective, and they can see real change, and that makes everything better, right? I mean, that's what it means to have a group of like-minded brothers in the same room, in the same organization, in the same community, who are making each other the best version of themselves, because they know that when they do that, they'll live out those values, and the fraternity will be a net asset to the university.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it sounds like you all are doing. Now, when you are in your mid 40s and you live in probably back in DC, because I know how y'all are. You DC folk like to go back home there. You're back in the greater DC area. You've got a family. Your kids are in the house, and they see all this black and gold stuff in your home office, and they're asking you, Dad, hey, what was it? What was it about being an A-Phi-A that was so important to you? I mean, what are you going to tell them about about the difference that it made in your life in college. What do you think you're going to be talking about?
I'll be talking about the bonds I've made. I've definitely like the brothers I've met here, my lifelong friends, and some of my closest friends, and they've been through me during like my hard times as well as like the times where I was prosperous. So definitely the bonds, the paternal bonds that I've built, having that support system has been helpful. And then also kind of like the same things that my father kind of learned, like the life lessons that have instilled through me through just like the things I've learned and experience I had becoming a member, being a member, whether it be just being a leader of this chapter, dealing with leading men, the challenges you face. Then there was also just some other things going on in the chapter as well. And as well as just, okay, learning about myself, like learning, okay, like I'm not really interested in this, but I'm more so interested in this. I think being a member of this fraternity at the time really helped me go into the person I am today, just mold me to who I am in terms of like my values, the characters, my principles, and also just like some of my tastes and stuff, being more comfortable with being myself. I hope that my experience in the chapter and the work I've done for this chapter, be it service or leadership, left a legacy of ambition as well as like overcoming obstacles as well too. And like I guess never counting yourself out.
So it's fair to say that you've seen significant growth in your own life from when you were a freshman coming into Clemson to you graduating here in a few months. You've seen incredible growth.
Definitely.
And you've seen incredible development. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that you were in a fraternity because it opened you up to things, you exposed to things. You, as we said earlier, you were able to practice some leadership skills, and you are much, much better, much more capable man at the end of your college career than you were when you started because of what the fraternity did for you. It's really, really extraordinary and special. And the fact that you are your age leading this group of men to be this ambitious and to leverage their presence to make Clemson a better place, in my estimation, makes you one of the best fraternity presidents in America. I'm going to put you on the honors list, the honor roll of fraternity presidents. I hope your parents are extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
I hope they are extremely proud of you. I hope they listen to this podcast. I hope they share it with people because they need to know that the son they raise is an incredible man.
Thank you.
And that Jamison Taylor, are you junior? What are you third? What are you?
I'm the third.
Yeah, Jamison Taylor the third is continuing the Taylor tradition of being an absolutely outstanding man, and your mother and your father and your cousins and everybody should really celebrate you because there's not a lot of men who are willing to sacrifice to be a leader in college. And one of the things that people don't know it is the level of sacrifice it takes to be the president of a fraternity because there's stuff that you have to trade off your own time, your own money to keep that fraternity going, and people don't know that. And I know that you being that kind of man because you're the president meant that you had to sacrifice some of your own options and opportunities. You traded a lot of stuff off that you could have done in order to lead the fraternity, be a great fraternity. And so I again I want to celebrate you. I'm proud of you. And everyone who listens to this podcast who watched you grow up should be clapping right now because what I heard today is a man who was raised right.
Thank you.
And raised well and will continue to be this way. And we're gonna expect great things because that's just the trajectory that you're on. And that had a lot to do with you not only going to Clemson because I'm biased, but also because you made the right decision to join the right fraternity while you were in college. So, Jamison Taylor, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Anthony Bradley Show.